Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone, for having me here. Thanks to ASA. Thanks, Ridge Running, for sponsoring our lunch and learns. Just want to start out by kind of giving you my story and seeing where we go from here. So, on December 4th, 2024, I heard a couple of sentences that kind of changed my life forever. Those two sentences were, "So sorry, Mr. Johnson. We cannot perform the MRI for your wife because you don't have any health insurance." Well, to say the least, that was a little bit of hard to explain the emotions that was going through. So what I wanted to talk about was to kind of tell you that story, put it into perspective, and give you a path on how to move forward and what it means to me. And my goal here today is so that you will leave thinking about ways that you can achieve your goals in the future. So I understand that your time is very precious. I know there's a lot of businesses going on here at ICAST, and I just want to create value for you guys, so let's get going. I strongly believe that everyone is here for a reason, and again, hope that I can add some value. So everybody there's pads there at all the tables. I want you to do something for me. I want you to kind of think about why you're here. Why are you at this Lunch and Learn? Why are you at ICAST this week? And just write down a couple of, a sentence or two about why you're here, what you're looking to get out of it. And I'm going to give you about just 30 seconds for that. All right, everybody got something written down? Still writing, good. All right, the second thing I want you to do is to think about at least one thing that you're working on for your professional or even personal goal. It doesn't have to be, a long-term plan. It doesn't have to be a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. It's just one thing, one priority thing that you're working on that you want to see, happen, let's say this year. All right, I think we're good. So I want to talk to you today about the material that we're going to cover and what that is. Sorry, let me get this thing going. There we go. So mostly everything I'm going to talk about today is part of the Maxwell Leadership certified team that I'm on, and this is from a book called R.E.A.L Success. And R.E.A.L Success is based around 4 main themes. The R stands for relationship. The E stands for equipping, the A stands for attitude, and the L stands for leadership. Now, due to the time that we've been given, I'm not going to be able to cover all 4 areas, but what I would like to do is spend a little time together today on attitude. More specifically, I'm going to show you how your attitude, let's go back to my story that I told, first couple of sentences that I started at the beginning, and show you how your attitude will personally impact you and your goals. Okay, so let's get started. How attitudes impact an individual? Well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to define what is attitude. Anyone want to take a shot at giving me an answer there? All right, I'll take it. Well, attitude is an inward feeling, so it's an emotion. And we have all types of emotions in life. What attitude is an inner feeling that is expressing your behavior outwardly. We can feel other people's attitudes based on the energy they're releasing and displaying. So what I'm saying here is that attitudes can be seen without a word being said. We feel other people's attitudes. We can walk into the room and feel if the attitude is positive or negative. Haven't we all noticed someone in a bad mood before ever having a conversation with that person? Well, the same can be said if somebody's in a good mood. We can feel that, just as the same way. It's being shown on the outside. James Allen, a psychologist, philosopher, and author, stated, "A person cannot travel within and stand without." What he's saying is that is what happens within us will always affect what's happening around us. Now, you guys, being retailers, what I wanted to do was take this opportunity for the Lunch and Learn to understand how to build relationships. You guys are running retail shops. You're working all the time with different people. You're working with third-party vendors that you work with. You're working with your direct suppliers that you're bringing products in from. You're working with your clientele, with your consumers that are actually coming into your store. So let me ask you this: what word best describes attitude? So attitude, success, happiness, it all kind of goes in together. How would you describe what makes you happy? Is it a job? Is it the job that you do? Is it education? Is it money? Is it relationships? Or is it really attitude? Our attitude is the primary force that will determine whether we succeed or whether we fail. Again, the definition of success is happiness. It is such an important area in our lives, but more often than not, it's a second thought. Someone with a positive attitude will most likely climb to new heights, while someone with a negative perspective will often fall into a deep valley. Going back to what, the first couple of sentences that I shared earlier. And once you get in that deep valley, it's unable to see through the darkness long enough to even climb out of the hole. The very fact that attitude makes some while breaks some is significant enough for us to explore its importance. So I got 5 or 6 points that I just want to go through based upon attitude. And the first one is our attitude, my attitude in the situations that we're in on a daily basis, your attitude that you're in with your customers, with your vendors, with the manufacturers. It's a choice. The first and most important discovery that we have to make is this understanding. Our attitude is a choice. The attitude that you have right now at this particular time is personally chosen. The attitude that I had at the diagnostic center when I found out that my family health insurance had been canceled 60 days prior because the company that I was working for had quit paying the premiums, it was a choice. However, I run into people all the time that they don't buy that. They believe the attitude that they have is because of the job that they don't like, because they're having to deal with someone here that they don't like, the car that they drive, the house they live in, whatever it is. They blame their attitude on something or someone else. And it's true that situations sometimes are out of our control. It was true that we did not have medical insurance. It was true that we were not going to be able to have an MRI that day. It was true that my wife had a lump come out of nowhere that grew to the size of a tangerine in a period of about a week. But the emotion that I would have had in that moment was a choice. The attitude that I would have had in that moment was a choice. But you have to realize that the only person that can make you happy is you. Happiness is not out there for you to grab hold of unless you choose to do it yourself. It's not something you can reach out by gaining something. It is within yourself. Your attitude is a choice, and the first key to success is to choose an attitude that is conducive for your success and the success of your business, and not allow others to control or to create a different attitude. Number 2, our attitude determines our approach to life. This is just a fact. Our attitude sets up how we'll approach life each and every day. So I'm curious. I want everybody to think, let's picture yourself in your store. How many of you can picture a person right now that has a bad attitude and you see them in your store? Would you run, duck? Would you jump to the next aisle? Would you, greet them? Would you want to get in your car and get away? How do you interact with those people? Now, here's the tough question. What would others do if they saw you? Is your attitude one of positive influence all the time? It's kind of like an airplane. If our nose is pointed up and we have a good attitude and moving forward, then we're lifting off. However, if the nose is pointed down and we have that negative attitude, then we're destined to be headed for a crash. So let me give you a little bit of analogy. Whenever I was in elementary school, me and my sister, my mom and dad worked, And me and my sister would always get off the bus at my grandparents' house. So one day, I think I was in, like, I don't know, 5th grade. My sister was in 1st grade, something like that. My grandfather, he would take a nap every afternoon, about 3, 4 o'clock. And we got in one day, and my grandfather was taking a nap in his, little napping chair. And my grandmother, had some cheese, some Limburger cheese. If anybody, have y'all smelled Limburger cheese? Y'all know what that smells like? So me and my sister were kind of playing a little joke. We go and get some of the cheese, and we rub it on his mustache while he was sleeping. And 20, 30 minutes goes by, and he wakes up, and he's sniffling around, and horrible smell. He's like, man, this room stinks. So he gets up and he kind of walks into the kitchen, and this room stinks. And he goes in the foyer, and he was like, what is the smell in this house? Goes outside for a breath of fresh air, takes in a deep breath, and was like, the whole world stinks. And how true is that to life? If we carry that Limburger cheese in our mustaches, in our attitudes, then the whole world smells bad. But again, we have to understand that we're individually responsible for our own view of life. It would be impossible to estimate today, thinking about business, it'd be impossible for us to estimate the number of jobs lost, the number of promotions that have missed, the number of sales that have lost due to bad attitudes. I bet that all of us see people who hold jobs that they hate and people that they're tolerated but unhappy on a daily basis, all because people are waiting for others to change instead of realizing we are responsible for our own behavior. What approach to life? So my question to you, what approach to life do you think I had that day at the diagnostic center? The third thing about our attitude is our attitude determines our relationships with people. Now, this is where we're really getting into the retail aspect. Everything in our lives is impacted by our relationships with people, yet establishing relationships is difficult. You have to understand that you cannot consistently be successful without the help of other people, without our customers, for sure, without our manufacturers, our suppliers. That's why it's essential to build proper relationships with others in this crowded world that we live in. So a little bit of stats here. Stanford Research Institute says that the money you make on any endeavor is determined 12.5% by your knowledge and 87.5% on your ability to deal with people. That's 87.5% people knowledge, 12.5% product knowledge. That determines your success. That's why Teddy Roosevelt said the most important single ingredient to the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. John D. Rockefeller was also quoted to say, I will pay more for the ability to deal with people than any other ability under the sun. When the attitude we possess place our customers first, and we see our customers and their issues as important, then our perspective will reflect their viewpoint, not ours. That's whenever you get to the point that you're actually adding value in sales. Until we walk in the other person's shoes in life and see through their eyes, we will be like the man who, gets in a car accident and jumps out and starts yelling, why, what's wrong with you people? Why can't you drive? You're the 4th car I've hit today. That kind of thing. So our attitude determines our relationships with our customers. And so what we have to do is figure out a way to deal with customers and suppliers in a way, again, that is conducive for our business and our business's success. So number 4, the fourth thing about our attitude is often our attitude is the only difference in between success and failure. History's greatest achievements have been made by men who excelled only slightly over the masses of others in their field. This could be called the principle of slight edge. Many times, that slight difference was attitude. Now, certainly aptitude, the ability to do something, is important to our success in life, but it's not everything. Success or failure is caused more by mental attitude than just mere abilities. So who here has employees, works with a team? Okay. All right. Whenever in your business world, would you rather have an employee be tested for aptitude, IQ, or for attitude, AQ? And what I want you to understand is that someone might have a high IQ, but if they don't have a high AQ, attitude, more likely they're not going to be able to create and maintain success with your customers in the long run. The president of Yale University once stated, always be kind to your A and B students. Someday, one of them will return to your campus as a good professor. Also, be kind to your C students. Someday, one of them will return and build a $2 million science laboratory. So I guess I'm trying to make the point here is if you really look and reflect on people, you will see that there's very little difference in each of us. But the little difference makes a big difference. That little difference is attitude. The big difference is whether that attitude is positive or negative. The fifth thing about our attitude is our attitude at the beginning of a task will affect the outcome more than anything else. Who's ever played sports? In high school, college, high school, middle school, anything? All right, team sports. All right, whenever you were playing sports, what type of message did your coach try to seed into your mind before a big game? Was it one that was positive and motivating? Of course it was. You know, coaches understand the importance of their teams and having the right attitude before facing a tough opponent. Surgeons, they want their patients to be mentally prepared before going into surgery. Job seekers know that their prospective employer is looking for more than just skills whenever they apply for work. Why? Because the right attitude in the beginning ensures that they will succeed. So I actually have a little story about this too. My daughters and I are, you know, of course, we're in the fishing industry here. Everybody, we're outdoor people. My daughters and I, you know, love the outdoors. So there was a few years ago, my oldest daughter loves to hunt, and we're you know, whitetail hunting in a deer stand early morning. She was not in the best of attitudes. We'd hunted like 3 days in a row. We hadn't seen anything, and I get her up that morning like 4:30. We go out. We're in the woods in the deer stand. Sun's starting to come up. She's just got a bad attitude the whole time. We're not going to see anything today, Dad, and all this, and you know, and what had happened was it was a really big dew that night, and it was really cold. So all the dew that had fallen in the trees, we were in real thick woods. All the dew that had fallen on the trees had frozen. And the leaves were kind of, you know, like this. Well, whenever the sun came up, it started to melt the dew. If any of y'all have spent some time in the woods, you've seen this. The dew started to melt, and it was so much that whenever those leaves turned up to the sun, that it started falling. And it comes down. She's like, Dad, now we're going to get rained out. And I'm like, no, honey. I said, that's not rain. It's the dawning of a new day. You know, it was all in her attitude. She was, you know, kind of, you know, just not in a negative place. But once she kind of took a step back and realized that, oh, that's just the sun that's rising and that's coming off, it's going to stop. But if you just took in that beauty, took in that nature and understood that's what's going on, then she, you know, had the right attitude, and she actually shot her first buck that day, and I should have put a picture in there. But it was just one of those days that, you know, it was just really cool. I think of us at times have all been guilty of viewing current or future challenges as setbacks versus potential opportunities, or being able to see the view of you know, the beauty in nature for that. Here's an analogy of that. Two salesmen, I've heard this story over and over again, and I really think it's true. Two salesmen back in like the 1930s, 1940s, traveled to an island to sell shoes. Two different shoe salesmen. Yeah, I'm sure y'all have heard the story. The first salesman upon arrival was shocked to realize that no one on the island wore shoes. Immediately, he goes to the telegram office, sends a telegram to the home office saying, in Chicago, same home office, he said, we'll return tomorrow, no one wears shoes. The second salesperson was thrilled by the same realization. Immediately, he wired the home office in Chicago and said, please send me 10,000 pairs of shoes, everybody here needs them. Our attitude in the beginning of a task will affect the outcome more than anything else. The goal to success is creating an attitude that is conducive, again, for the success and the success of your business from the beginning. So the sixth thing about our attitude is our attitude can turn our problems into blessings. Another fact, our attitude can turn difficult times into better times if we choose that right attitude. In Awake My Heart, Sidlow Baxter wrote, "What is the difference between an obstacle and an opportunity? Our attitude toward it. Every opportunity has a difficulty, and every difficulty has an opportunity." When confronted with difficult situations, a person with an outstanding attitude makes the best of that situation, even though he might be getting the worst end of the situation. If you really think about life, life can be likened to a grindstone. Whether it polishes you up or grinds you down depends solely upon you and what you're made of. To highlight this concept even more, let's take a look at the following people that you'll probably recognize. Number one, Albert Einstein. Despite being known as a true genius in his day, Albert Einstein didn't have a great start. As a kid, he did not even speak till age 4. And his elementary school teacher told him that he would never amount to anything because he was considered lazy. He kept on anyway, eventually formulating the theory of relativity, which I don't even understand, and is known worldwide as one of the greatest thinkers in the world, in history. Number two, Benjamin Franklin. He actually dropped out of school on his 10th birthday. His family couldn't afford to finance his education anymore, but that didn't stop him. He went on to teach himself through reading and ended up inventing numerous things such as the bifocals and even the lightning rod. Thomas Edison, we saw Sid, talking about Thomas Edison just a moment ago. Thomas Edison may hold the record for the most failed attempts before reaching success on a single project. He failed over 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb that worked. His response to a reporter said, "I had not failed 10,000 times. I just found 9,999 ways that the light bulb would not work." This positive and motivational attitude has become inspirational to all of those trying to achieve something. Number four, Michael Jordan. As a kid, Jordan loved basketball, and he knew he wanted to make a career out of it. However, no one would give him the shot. He was actually cut from his high school basketball team. He went on to become the greatest basketball player of all time. The fifth example, right here in Orlando, Walt Disney. Disney began his career by being fired from a newspaper because he wasn't creative enough. And then later on in his career, his Mickey Mouse cartoon was put down because it just basically rejected because all the critics said that the mouse, Mickey Mouse, was too scary for women. If Walt would have listened to those skeptics and given up and not kept pursuing because he had the right attitude during those challenges, then the Disney company that we know today wouldn't even exist. And the final example is the situation that I led to in the beginning of the presentation. In November of 2023, I took a job with a startup that seemed to have a lot of growth potential. However, the company, unknown to me, was not fully funded. And after a few months, I stopped receiving a paycheck. I stopped getting reimbursed for expenses. I was told each month that the funding would be secured soon and that my back pay was being documented. It's on the cap table. But unfortunately, it never came. The last straw was whenever my wife needed the MRI, and we found out that we had no health insurance. The company had not paid the bill, the insurance was canceled, and I went 60 days without insurance and didn't even know it until we were in an emergency situation and found out that we didn't have it. That was the day that J Squared Consultants was launched. Within a week, we formed the corporation, built the company. I was able to get health insurance for my family. Good news, the lump was not a tumor. It was a fibric cyst that has went away now through drainage therapy and iodine treatments. So as you can see, these individuals and myself, repeatedly faced some problems and setbacks, but their consistent positive attitude actually allowed them to rise above the commonplace. Not only did these people find the answers, but discovered a tremendous power within themselves. And the seventh and final thing about our attitude is our attitude can give us an uncommonly positive perspective. This uncommonly positive perspective will help us accomplish some uncommon goals. I've keenly observed the differences and approaches achieved by a positive thinker and by a person, thinker and by a person filled with fear and apprehension. Individuals whose attitudes cause them to approach life from an entirely different perspective are not always understood. They are called what some would be a no-limit person. In other words, they don't accept normal limitations of life as most people do. They are unwilling to accept the accepted, all because of attitude. Their response to limiting conditions would probably be why instead of okay. Certainly they have limitations. Their gifts are not so plentiful that they cannot fail, but they're determined to walk to the very edge of their potential and the potential of the goals before accepting that defeat. Does anyone know the story of a bumblebee? According to the theory of aerodynamics, bumblebees cannot fly. It's been demonstrated in wind tunnels. The bumblebee should not be able to fly because of the size, the weight, and the shape of its body in relationship to its total wingspan. Because it is scientifically impossible, but the bumblebee is ignorant of that. The bumblebee doesn't know it can't fly. It just keeps on flying and keeps on making honey. In my situation, most people would see that startup venture as a complete failure. But I can say, standing in front of you here today, that I count it as a blessing and as a success. Most of you know me in this industry from working at Pittman Creek for about a decade, and most of you have witnessed firsthand the enormous growth of that company. On the day that I knew I needed to do something drastic for my family, I took a long time and really thought long and hard about what I needed to do and how I needed to go about it. And I will say that that the Lord gave me a positive attitude, and an attitude that said, okay, you can crawl into a hole here, you can try and find a new job, you can, several different things you can do. But I look back over 30 years in business and I said, where was I the most fulfilled? And where I found that was in a couple of different companies that I worked at, Pittman Creek being one of them. And where I was the most fulfilled was whenever we broke ceilings. And how did we do it? Those ceilings had hit, and we couldn't go any further until we made investments in infrastructure. We couldn't go any further until we implemented CRMs. We couldn't go any further until we built a vision and we built KPIs and we built the process. Strategy, process, execution. That's where, I had found, basically my calling and being able to help the businesses that I'd worked for before. And really, whenever I got to thinking about it, it was more than just what am I going to do. It was a very clear business plan. I can serve others. I can make an impact, the kind of impact that I've made at other companies in the past, by launching my own business and doing as much as I possibly can for the impact of other businesses based upon 3 pillars, and that is sales acceleration, operational efficiencies for cost reduction, and leadership, working together as a team for behavioral analysis, understanding how other people think, how to communicate, and how to communicate with customers, add value, and work together as a team. So, at the end of this, it's all about service. It's all about adding value to the customer. It's all about keeping a positive attitude and building those relationships, communication and attitude. The future not only looks bright when the attitude is right, but the present is also much more enjoyable. The positive person understands that the journey of success is as enjoyable as the destination. Thank you.